Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural episode of our new TV channel, Winning Ideas TV. Thank you for watching, and thank you for any comments and feedback. We would love it. This is our first one. We're really excited to bring to you on a regular basis some of the leading business minds and investors and CEOs for our audience. And we will start our first episode today is with DC's Mr. Cranky, Mr. Glen Hellman, who is a fellow Jersey boy. He's a serial investor, serial CEO. He has become a great blogger, speaker, and executive coach. So, Glen, welcome, and thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So, Glen's nickname is Mr. Cranky, and I'd love to know how you got that nickname, what you think of it. Do you like it? Do you not like it? And
I earned it, and I tried to earn it.
Yeah.
And it gets back to, I know we're going to spend some time talking about reptilian brain.
Yes.
How we make decisions.
Absolutely.
And part of branding is to be able to stand out, set yourself apart.
Yes.
So when I started blogging, one of the things I wanted to be as a blogger was a critical thinker. And a lot of the places I was blogging, they didn't want critical thinking. They thought it was cranky and it was bad for their brand. And I decided, well, screw it. I will become my own blogger and I will be Mr. Cranky. And then the Washington Business Journal just picked it up and perpetuated it.
Who nicknamed you Mr. Cranky? Was it the Business Journal or?
No, it was people at Tech Cocktail where I was writing at the time.
Okay. And Glen's blog, by the way, is one of the top blogs in Washington, D.C. It's called drivenforward.com, and he tells it like it is, totally transparent and honest, and he calls out a lot of people. So your brand is Mr. Cranky. Does that mean you're always going to be writing crankily?
So
I know you're fed up with the feel-good press.
Yeah,
I know that's
it's more critical thinking, and I do positive posts. And frankly, when I do them, it's to sort of change the weight from the crankiness. So, for instance, today, it was a slightly cranky post, but it really involved the fact that I understand that as a cranky old white guy, I have a lot of privileges.
Yes.
A lot of people can't be cranky old white guys.
Right.
You just can't, but I am allowed to be, and there's a reason why I am, and there's a lot of people who aren't.
Right.
So today's blog is more positive.
Yes, well, I love reading your blogs, and they are. You do.
Thursday's going to be really negative. Just
okay.
so it's going to be really cranky.
Right.
It's going to be the definition of a stupid investor.
Okay. Right. Well, this is good. I mean, we need that in the market. I think people should see all sides of the equation.
And I have to say that one of the things that makes me fed up is, the Washington Post used to have a staff of business writers.
Yes.
And they were critical.
And they
did long pieces. There was
Tom Heath.
Shannon Henry.
Yeah.
Shannon Henry, and a bunch before that. They had a staff, and they did long pieces. Now there's not enough of them. And there's nobody doing research, and the kind of tech bubble information we get is by people who make money, not by selling subscriptions, but by getting clickbait.
Yeah.
And if you're critical, it hurts your ad brand, it hurts your clickbait, it hurts the events or whatever else is generating your money.
That's true.
So, one of the things I feel is somebody's got to stand up and do the kind of critical thinking in pieces that aren't getting done anymore.
Right.
Because I see people getting suckered into bad decisions.
Right. And, Glen has a very unique business card. It's a can of, quote, whoop ass, and it looks like a Campbell's soup can. He hands it out to people. We don't have a sample here, but if people wanted to get a copy or get a business card, where can they send you an email to get that?
They can contact me through the blog.
Through the blog.
Yeah, there's a contact. There's a contact page. Contact me, and I've got.
But why do you? I mean, you're just playing into the brand of Mr. Cranky. So, why do you have it like a whoop ass?
Okay,
as your business card?
Tian, I love you. I've known you for years. I have no idea what your business card looks like. It doesn't resonate in the back of my brain. This is a reptilian thing.
It's the most unique business card I've ever seen.
It is. And then the other thing is...
Although when you're going to a trade show or something, you got to carry cases of these.
No, what you do is you carry labels and then you buy the soup cans when you're there. But and there's another problem is when people are traveling, you got to give them empty soup cans, which is the
right, so they can bring them on airplanes.
So they can bring them on airplanes, and so the empty soup cans are pencil holders, cans of whoop-ass pencil holders.
Very cool.
And clean it out. Yeah,
very cool.
But the thing about the whoop-ass as a sales technique, for instance. Nobody answers the phone anymore. Mm-hmm. If I don't know the number, I don't answer it. Right. I've got people who screen. I don't, nobody leaves voicemails anymore and I don't take those emails anymore.
Right.
If I want to talk to somebody and I send them a can of whoop-ass in the mail, it gets opened up.
Got it.
And when I call them, they'll answer.
Now, are they supposed to use that whoop-ass with their people, or are you going to use it with them if you coach them?
So in the ingredients section of whoop-ass, it says, you can open up a can of whoop-ass on your people, and that may help them perform better. But who opens up a can of whoop-ass on you when you need it? Who keeps you honest? Who moves you forward? Here's your can of whoop-ass.
So that's sort of your coaching style. You hold people accountable.
That's my job. Is to, I say I help people figure out what to do, and then I get them to do it.
Right.
I just keep asking questions.
Right. Well, I do want to talk about the coaching, but first I do wanted to talk about your concept of the reptilian brain. I've seen you speak on the topic. I've seen you write on the topic, and it's a great sort of what is the reptilian brain, and why does it matter to business leaders or CEOs? Why should they even care?
So as humans, we make a bad assumption when we believe that people make decisions rationally.
Yeah.
We make logical decisions illogically. And the big
drive. Logical decisions illogically.
We make rational decisions irrationally.
Okay.
And I'll give you a real simple proof of that. But the reason behind that is that through research, when you put an MRFI on your brain and see what lights up and where decisions are made in the brain, it's in the same part of the brain we share with reptiles, the alligator brain, the reptilian brain. That's actually where the decision gets made. Yet we have this huge frontal cortex that we think with. It's logical. It's logical. It's where language exists. It's how we do numbers. It can do things that are more perceptual. It can handle abstractions.
Right.
That back part of the brain can't. It's got a very simple programming. And that part of the brain was developed 280 million years ago.
Right.
Humans have been on the earth for 100,000 years. Mm-hmm. So if you forget that part of the brain is a major element in decision making, you're going to lose. If you try to make a decision the way your brain thinks of abstract concepts and try to make them real, you're going to lose.
Right.
So the can of whoop-ass is a more physical, less abstraction. People remember it. Is
it more than like fear and greed or fight or flight?
Okay, so here's one. Is it rational that in Washington, D.C., there's not a person here who hasn't been caught in traffic? If you're caught in traffic,
which is every day.
Every day. What starts happening is you start sweating. Your blood pressure actually goes up physically. You start sweating. You might be banging the wheel. You get angry. You get irritated. You're not somebody you want to spend time with. That is, in the animal kingdom, that only takes place if an animal is going to die. That is fight or flight. So what's going on there? What are we telling our part of the brain? And we have this self-talk, and my self-talk is this. Probably, I'm going to be late for this appointment. Mm-hmm. Customer's not going to buy a product from me. My boss is going to find out he's going to fire me. I'll probably never get another job again, which means I won't be able to earn money, which means I won't be able to eat, which means I'm probably going to starve to death. Mm-hmm. And everybody in that audience has gone through that kind of experience, but I guarantee you 99% of you have not died or starved to death. It's a small percentage that may have, but out there watching. But 99% of you watching have probably not died. Therefore, once you know that actually,
yes,
and you can actually exercise the frontal part of the brain, the neocortex, and say to the back part of the brain, it's okay, I'm not going to die. I don't get upset in traffic anymore.
Mm-hmm. So the reptilian brain, I totally buy it. 280 million years of history. makes total sense that people are. So what are some tools and tricks that
it's more visual.
It's more visual.
It makes it. That's why a can of whoop-ass, which stands out, will have people remember me. But it's why graphs make more sense than numbers. The part of the brain that makes decisions doesn't know language, so give it pictures. That's why you know the pictures are.
Right. So when you're selling, whether you're selling to a customer or internally an idea, you want to do these things, right? You want to appeal to the audience's reptilian brain.
Right. And here's another way. One of the greatest marketeers of all time is Joseph Stalin, a brilliant marketeer. And one of his best pieces of marketing advice is 1,000 deaths is a statistic. 1 death is a tragedy. I'll give you an example of that. 2 years ago, 450 people were shot in Chicago. Statistic. Glen Farrell left his home one morning. A couple months earlier, he had received an award by Magic Johnson for being a mentor of young kids. Now, this was a kid who had been in trouble all his life. He was 20 years old, and he had just got accepted to college, and he was doing mentoring. He left his mom's home. He went to the basketball court. He was playing basketball with a kid he was mentoring, and he got shot. That's a tragedy.
That is a tragedy.
So the reptilian brain can empathize with Glen Farrell.
But not with the stat.
But then I can say there were 453 Glen Farrells.
Okay, yeah. Got it.
In Chicago. And build it up. That's one of the ways you use to affect people. And one of the ways this gets in the way of leadership is we choose our leader. We have not had a leader, a president in the United States since 1888 who was shorter than average.
So the last over 100 years, presidents have been taller than average.
And that's because we
that's
all know.
Reptilian, right? We want the tall, handsome.
We believe we pick leaders the way we would pick them if we were living in caves and fighting off saber-toothed tigers.
Got it, yeah.
But Hillary Clinton could have pushed that bomb button just as well as Donald Trump.
Right.
It doesn't involve size anymore, yet that reptilian brain looks at choosing leaders. How can I feel safe? And modeling behavior that makes people feel safe is a way to hack through the deficit of the reptilian brain.
That's really awesome stuff. Very interesting to keep in mind when we're selling or just dealing in business. How can we learn more about this? Are there resources or?
Well, my book.
People can email you. You're writing a book.
I'm writing a book. I've got a bunch of blogs on it. There's a great pop culture book out right now by Michael Lewis, who does, who talks a lot about how humans make decisions and how illogical we are, called The Undoing Project. Great book, easy read.
The Undoing Project.
And if you read that and love that, then it's about a scientist who wrote another book called Thinking Fast and Slow, which is another great book. But there's a lot of reading on neuroscience.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. So one of your other recent blog posts that was really caught my attention where you talked about traits of excellent CEOs. I know we've got a lot of CEOs out there, a lot of millennials, a lot of guys that are doing startups and stuff. What are some of the, and this is research-based, right? It's not Glen's opinion or anyone else's. So what are the top traits of CEO based on research? And what are some tips and some advice that we can give our millennial CEOs out there?
So first I'd like to start with the research I've done personally. Then I'll move to this research paper that I wrote the blog on recently. But my research shows that there are basically 3 types of people. There are those people who know who's buried in the tomb of the unknown soldier. Those people are not coachable. Very few of them will ever be great CEOs. Steve Jobs knew who was buried in the tomb of the unknown soldier, but he really knew. It wasn't a guess. He wasn't guessing. He didn't say anything. So, there are a few Einsteins who can do that, but very few. Very few. The next kind is the CEO who does not know who's buried in Grant's tomb. Also not going to be a very good CEO, and there's no examples of that person being a great CEO. And then the third kind is somebody who wants to know, why is Grant buried in New York City? The curious person, person who's green, growing, never knows enough. And that is a great trait for a CEO.
So that coachability, that lifelong learning and curiosity.
Somebody who reads voraciously and not just novels, but reads to become smart.
Is that the number one trait?
No, actually it is, but it's
up there.
Yeah. So there's out of all the traits, there are two that really have stuck out in the research. The first one is the ability to look at things and distill them into what is important, what's not, and without having to do all the research. So, but being able to prioritize, this is the most important thing. This is what we should focus on. And getting a group of people focused on that and believing in it. And then the second thing is
focus, you said.
Being able to distill into focus. And the second one is not requiring all the research, being willing to take a chance to do it on 80%, to be almost there, but not spending an extra, doubling the time it takes to make a decision to make sure that you're 100% right instead of 80% right.
Right.
So Patton is another person with a great quote on this. I would much rather execute a good plan now than a perfect plan at some indefinite time in the future.
So a good CEO takes risk and takes
knows
action.
Knows when it's time to go. Knows what's important, takes risk, and knows when it's time.
What about grit? You hear a lot about grit. You read a lot about it. This tenacity, persistence, ability to take blows,
this is from a different research, and it's grit's really hard to you can't take a disc test and figure out if somebody has grit.
Right.
But research shows that, for instance, the best CEOs today are recent immigrants. They've had, and I'll tell you why. They've run the gauntlet, or people with learning disabilities. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks that being a PhD or coming out of an Ivy makes you a great CEO. When you rank CEOs on performance, only 7% of the top CEOs have graduated from an Ivy. 8% are dropouts. Mm-hmm. Now, let's face it, that includes Bill Gates and
Steve Jobs,
Zuckerberg.
Ellison, and
So, but they are dropouts. They didn't graduate from an Ivy, so it's not required. But there are things that define you, and when you go through the gauntlet, when Branson made it through college, he first of all, because he has dyslexia, because he was defined as not intelligent, yet made it through. He had passed through this gauntlet of that had made him steal and knew he could get back up. Yeah. But the other thing is that the people who were lesser and had lesser ability than he fell out.
They do.
They do. So, but recent immigrants.
So, if you were not to ignore research, would you put grit up there with these other two traits?
Yeah. I mean, I would, and then to a fault though.
Yeah.
The in a startup world, one of the hardest decisions is figuring out, is it time to pack it in?
Right.
Right. And it's never a good time to pack it in. It just never is. There's so many stories of people who have gone past the time of thinking they were failure, who've made it.
They were one payroll away.
And there's so
Under
many.
Armour, look at Federal Express. They all came within a payroll of going out of business.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you look at that. Quick, so I was on the red eye back from Brazil last night, and I saw this awesome HBO documentary. I highly recommend it. It's called Becoming Warren Buffett, and that's probably why I couldn't sleep on the plane. I saw this documentary, and it was just blew my mind. Anyway, there's a story in there that talks about their first meeting, Warren and Bill Gates. Bill's mother insisted that Bill come up and meet Warren, and he didn't want to do it. I guess at dinner, his father gave a piece of paper to Warren and to Bill and said, why don't you guys write down in one word, your reason or how you guys were so successful. What do you think that one word was? Because they both wrote the same word.
Curiosity.
Focus. So Buffett and Gates both wrote down one word, focus, and just that's, I don't know how that's measured in all of this, but it's very important.
So I would say that focus was that first thing, the ability to sort of discern these are not things that
Yeah.
are not important, and this is where I should be spending my time to distill that.
Yep.
Interesting you should bring them both up, because they dispel one of the myths of great CEOs or leaders, and that's being gregarious, being an extrovert.
Right, they're both introverts.
They're both introverts.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because they are great leaders.
They are.
They probably didn't start out as great leaders. You know why? Because they weren't the person you would choose to help you fight off the saber-toothed tiger. But over time, they've proven that they're the person who could keep you safe and make you. And that just, to me, that's the danger of letting the reptilian brain choose your leaders. And it's one of the reasons why people should learn how that reptilian brain chooses leaders, and you should game it.
Right. No, that's cool. Thank you for that. We have another 5 minutes left, guys? So I do want to touch on coaching. So Glenn, I know you're an executive coach, and this is kind of a self-serving question for you, but I personally believe everybody could use a coach. If Tiger Woods needs a coach, then everybody needs a coach. If Michael Jordan needs a coach, everyone. So,
well, Tiger Woods needs a life coach. But.
Well, yeah, okay, maybe not the best example, but with respect to startup CEOs or CEOs in early stage companies where money's tight, they do need the coaching. What do they do? I mean, how do they get that mentoring? Outside of bringing in advisory board members who barely give them time, or talking to board members or investors.
So this is whether you're spending the money with me or anybody else. It's like, I remember that old commercial, you can pay me now or you can pay me later.
Mm-hmm.
A good coach will save you so much money or make you money. If a good coach doesn't have a quick payback after the first 3 months of coaching, then they're not worth it. But it is not an expense. It is an investment. If you're a CEO, and I've been on board, I sat on a board, and we fired the CEO. Mm-hmm. Before we fired the CEO, we would go to the board. We would go to the board after party, and we would smoke cigars and eat steaks and drink scotch and make CEO jokes. Right? That CEO couldn't trust his board to have his back. He couldn't trust his CFO to give him an unvarnished view. When we fired the CEO, I became the CEO, and I stopped being invited to the CEO bashing party after parties. I wasn't invited anymore. No one is as isolated as a CEO. I mean, I couldn't share things with my wife because it would freak her out, and she'd worry about, how are we going to pay our bills?
Right.
I couldn't. There were things I couldn't share with anybody. Yeah. But that's.
So you're almost saying like you can't afford not to have a coach or someone to help guide you.
So if I look at every company I did as a turnaround, I would say that isolation of not one turnaround that I did, except for one, was the CEO. Were they wrong? Did they practice malfeasance?
Okay.
With one exception. It was just bonehead move after bonehead move.
Right. And the coach can help avoid these bonehead moves, and you can help them see the light on certain things and go towards opportunity and avoid danger.
Hey, we've all been there. We all sat there and had somebody tell us a story, and we know exactly what to do, but they're too close to it. That's what the coach does.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, the great athletes all have coaches. The great business leaders all have great coaches. I guess we have a few minutes left. Is there anything you wanted to discuss or bring up? Any advice? 3 minutes left for our...
Well, in terms of coaches, so there's a can of whoop ass.
Oh, really? Oh, hey, thanks, Laura. So that is what a can of whoop ass looks like. There you go.
There's your can of whoop ass. Mm-hmm. And and another reason why I do the can of whoop ass is I used to go to shows and I would get all these trinkets that I'd love.
Yeah.
And when I got the trinkets I loved, I would give them to my kids to play with. I got this monkey that you can shoot across the room and it screams when you shoot it.
Right.
Every CEO wants this on their desk. 90% of the time, this doesn't go
it's a
anywhere. It
great
sits
item.
on the
It's
desk.
one of the
People
best
say, "Where did
items."
you get it?"
Right.
Whatever else. It's just a very
Yep.
good.
And I like the fact that you're patronizing our fellow New Jersey company, Campbell Soup.
And
Hopefully
shout
this
out
is
to her
tomato-
for coming out and
tomato
leaving
soup.
that group,
Oh, right.
that presidential group.
Good job on her part. I agree. But we have a couple minutes left. Anything else you want to leave us with?
So
Any other pearls of wisdom from Mr. Cranky himself? He's not so cranky, right? He's
I am
actually-
cranky.
He's
I am
cranky,
cranky,
but we got you on a good day today.
So the pearls of wisdom are, I believe, because I was a child of the 70s when the man was a crook. And the man made us go to Vietnam and sent us to Vietnam, and you couldn't trust the government. I believe that I have always questioned everything. And I think we're in an environment now where people take things for granted and take the word that they hear. So, I watch MSNBC, and I watch Fox News.
Yeah, so do I.
And then I make up my mind.
And CNN. I watch all three.
Everybody's got.
I tell my kids to do the same.
Right.
You need different viewpoints.
Because it's just and so my thing is question everything. And unfortunately, in the business press, the local business press, the startup press, a lot of what we read is just
the national startup press, the
Mashable, TechCrunch. There's all something in it.
Right.
When you hear that somebody won a CES award, just go Google that and you'll find out that that's a pay-to-play award.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean you have a good product. It means that you spent a lot of money to have them put their logo on.
Sure. No, that's great advice. Think for yourself. So with that, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Please leave your comments. You've got Glen's contact information, and thank you guys so much. Hopefully we'll keep doing this, and stay tuned for our second and third and fourth installments. So thanks and have a great day. Thank you so much, brother. This is